Is this becoming a competition? Do I have to not put trivia up every week? All right. mm, they get harder. No. Okay. I love it. I don't know that I intended that to be a competition. All right. That wasn't the goal. The goal was just to have something up there for you guys to watch in case you weren't talking with other people. That way you weren't just sitting there doing nothing and waiting for 5 minutes for the service to start. Um, but that's okay. That's okay. Listen, you got a good bit of them right. I told you they get harder. Some of them get harder, especially some of the terms that we don't use for Jesus and for God, or some of the ones that we don't realize we're specifically attributed to him. So those are fun. I saw some other ones that were bodies of water in the Bible. That it was really hard. Like I went to school for this, and it was like some of them are really just obscure, and I'm like, I have no idea where that is. It's not like they're talking about the Jordan, saying where was Jesus baptized, right? Like, not it was hard. It was really hard. But welcome to the Way Church. Thank you for being with us today. We are a church that is dedicated to walking in the way, teaching the way, and sharing the way of Christ. If you are new with us this morning, I'm sure you got a connection card on your way in. It should look like that. And it has a QR code on it for our app. Did anybody get the notification this week that said our app has some new stuff on it? Okay, I want to talk about the new stuff that's on the app. One, past sermons. So if you click on it, or if you tell somebody, hey, download our app, and they're like, well, I want to hear what your pastor sounds like, or, I want to catch up on the series and binge it like Netflix. Y'all binge Netflix? You ever binge sermons? We start binging sermons. So you can binge the first 3 sermons that we did for the Armor of God series, and you can watch that to get caught up on everything. So there's past sermons there, and then there's the About Us section. And I'm sorry, let me get out of the way here so people can scan that. I saw people putting their phones up. You can scan it right there. So the About Us section is really awesome too. So that is a place where you can go and you can find all about who we are as a church. You can click on it in the app and it will take you down through. And there's actually a spot in there where you can download our bylaws. So you can see our bylaws there. And me and the elders are working on a church budget. Once the church budget gets totally approved, that will be on there for everybody to see as well. And you can just download that. So it's a way you can find out everything you want to know about the church. So if you haven't downloaded the app, please download it. Again, if you're brand new, you can fill out the backside of that connection card and just give me your information so that I can get a hold of you, and we can go grab some wings or something sometime, or we can go have an adult dinner sometime, right? Just the adults, leave the kids at home, right? Have a good time. We can do those things. That'll be really fun. So if you haven't given us your information, please go ahead and do that for us. I have a couple of announcements this morning. First of all, Roar, our brand new men's ministry that's starting here at the Way Church. It's going to be fun. Matt and Amanda Brown aren't here this week. They're in Yellowstone. National Park, and I got some pictures. I got some pictures. Bison and moose and Old Faithful and an eagle. They're all kinds of stuff. They're having a great, great time. But Matt Brown, actually, it's going to be at his house September 26th, guys, at 6 p.m. I shouldn't say guys. Ladies, write it down for your husband. Put it on your calendar. Make sure your husband shows up, okay? And I'll get you guys the details, and we'll get you details of exactly where it's going to be, but it's going to be at 6 p.m. We're going to get together as guys. We're going to have a fire. We're going to smoke and grill meat, and I believe we're going to put some, right? We're going to put some targets out. There's a bunch of us. I think I have like 3 bows. A bunch of us have bows. We're going to bring some bows and stuff, and just, if you've never shot a bow before, come shoot a bow. We're going to do some manly stuff and just build a nice community of men who speak bold truths and loud truths and have bold faith with one another, like the Lions that we're called to be. So it's going to be awesome. And then the next one, ladies, your next Ladies of the Way event's coming up, and it's called Among the Wildflowers. I have that date on there. I don't know that it's totally correct because I have to get it with the event space that we're going to. So we're going to be taking the ladies, I'm not, to a wildflower field. And they're going to allow us to rent out the space, bring food. I believe I heard charcuterie boards and drinks and stuff like that. And then you ladies will have a chance to pick wildflowers, all while Heather Trent or someone else is going to be just speaking into women's lives among the wildflowers. Okay, so the event will change. I'm going to put an event out on Facebook for both of these, for the men's event and for the ladies event, giving you guys all the details. So when you see it, share it with all your ladies or all your male friends right there. And what do we have next? I believe we have our giving slide next. Listen, I said I wanted to thank everybody for their faithfulness in giving. It's something that we're all called to do is to give it to God. And what that is just a heart posture and a heart attitude of just understanding that he is where everything comes from. And it's a gift that we've been given anyway, so we give it back to him. If you choose not to give it to this church, that's totally fine. Just give it to God. That's totally fine. But if you'd like a place to give it to, we pass a basket around. We're going to pass the basket around. That connection card I talked about earlier, you can drop it here, or you can drop in your checks or cash or whatever you'd like, or you can give on our app or on our website. That's back behind me. It makes it easier for you. You can actually set it up as recurring, and then you don't need to even remember it. It just automatically does it every single week, which is nice. And a lot of you have taken advantage of that. So that's awesome. That is awesome. All right, well, that's passing around. We are going to have our quick sermon intro video to get into our sermon series, and then we're going to dive right into the next piece, which is the shoes of the gospel of peace, and we're going to talk about taking territory this morning with Christ's peace. All right, we are moving on into our next part of the Armor of God series. Who's had fun with this series, looking at each of the different pieces? I had somebody just talk to me yesterday. They were like, I've heard about, put on that full armor of God, and maybe they talked about it a little bit, kind of like our introductory sermon. He's like, but I don't think I ever went through just every single piece and just saw how it ties in with the rest of Scripture and stuff. So I've had a great time. If you guys don't know, when you're preparing for a sermon, it's almost teachers. We have some teachers in here. Y'all know, like, you learn more than what you end up teaching other people because you just can't put it all into the time frame. So I have learned so much, and I am just loving it going through this. It's been so much fun. So we're in week 4 of our series, which is all about building our defense for the spiritual battles that we face in 2025. We strapped on the belt of truth. That's where we started with. And then we went through the breastplate of righteousness and saw that how that shields our hearts with Christ's covering. Could somebody say I'm suited up? Are you guys suited up this morning? You guys been suiting up every week? That's awesome. I love it. So we're going to turn to Ephesians 6:15. And it says, and as shoes for your feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace. These shoes aren't for standing still. All right. They are for advancing, strategically conquering territories, forging alliances, and expanding God's kingdom. We're going to unpack what these shoes mean this morning. We're going to dive into some of the Greek and Roman history, behind these shoes and what Paul would have been thinking of. I got some pictures for you of like some old school shoes that like the soldiers would have been wearing. It's probably not what you're thinking of. That video is super cool, but it's super unrealistic. That's like Middle Ages, you know what I mean? Full knight in armor. They were wearing leather sandals is what they were wearing with hobnails on the bottom of them is what it's called. So it's cool. We're then going to keep Jesus as our peace and see how he is our peace and keep him at the center of everything. And then we're going to get real about why and where we need to carry the peace that has been given through us through Jesus into our communities, into our families, and into the world. And my hope is that you'll leave here ready to claim ground for Christ this morning. Okay, so the shoes of the gospel of peace, Christ as our peace. We're going to start with Paul's words in Ephesians 6:15. They're written from a Roman prison around AD 60 to 62. We talked about that the first couple of weeks. And it says, and as shoes for your feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace. In Greek, the gospel of peace is, here's how you say this, euangelion, tes irenes. That's how you say that. And euangelion, you might hear that and you're like, I kind of know that word. That's actually where we get the word for evangelism from. Okay, so if you could think, an evangelist, what do they do? And especially in the culture back then, they go out and proclaim the word. They're moving. They don't just stand still and wait for people to come to them. So the good news, the euangelion, that brings irenes, brings peace. And that is a term that echoes the Hebrew shalom. Okay, and shalom in the Bible, if we look back all the way to creation, okay, and it says, God created this and it was good, and it was good, and it was good. And then he created humans, he said, it's very good, which is a huge blessing that it was very good when he did that. In the Hebrew, that's shalom, and it was shalom. And shalom means wholeness, it means completeness. The best translation that you could use, because Hebrew is a Semitic language, is everything as it should be, right? So that's the way it is. And in the Greek, irene means wholeness, victory, and restoration through the peace of Christ. And that's where they get the word peace from. And the phrase having put on means to clothe or equip oneself, like lacing up your boots before you go for a march. Historically, Roman soldiers, they wore something called collegiae. That's what Paul would have been seeing when he saw the Roman soldiers. He's in prison when he's writing this letter. So he's seeing these soldiers guarding him, and he's looking at their collegiae, and they were built for conquest. Okay, these shoes. I said the Roman army back then was the best in the world. Like, I mean, in our minds, we think like Navy SEALs or Delta Force or Special Forces. Like, that was the Roman army. That was them. And these collegiae that they had, these leather sandals were studded with iron hobnails, is what it was. And they were the first ones to do this, okay? They didn't come all the way through their feet or anything like that. But to put something on there so they could get grip. They gripped the rugged terrain. They enabled legions, and this blew my mind, to march 20 to 30 miles a day. A day. I was in the military. We did some marching. We got some other people in the military. You marched 30 miles in a day? No, I did not. right? Like not 30. Like that's insane. And we see this as detailed by Josephus. And he describes how collegiae powered campaigns like Vespasian's in Judea, allowing the soldiers to cross rocky hills, to cross deserts, and to see cities like Jerusalem like they did in AD 70. Tacitus in the Annals notes their role in their march to Masada in 873. In 73, their boots endured harsh terrains to claim victory. Their boots had a purpose. They didn't just put them on to stand. I said I was in the military when I was in. I mean, you have the boots that they issue you, and they do the job. But they're not like the Oakley boots that you can get, right? Like Oakley makes a pair of boots, and they're basically like sneakers with boot bottoms on them. They're phenomenal. They're great, and you wear them just to be comfortable. That's not what these for. These had a purpose. And the collegiae were tied to the soldier's belt and his armor. It ensured mobility, stability, symbolizing Rome's drive to expand its empire. And Paul, being surrounded by all of these soldiers, sees the Evangelion tes Irenes, the gospel of peace, the shoes fitted with the gospel of peace, as our collegiae, like equipping us to advance God's kingdom, to take territory. So why do these shoes, and we talk about this every week, why do these shoes follow truth and righteousness? And we see and we've learned that truth anchors you in God's reality, the belt of truth, which exposes lies. Righteousness then shields your heart through Christ's justification. We learned that last week, which covers us from sin. Now, peace propels us forward to conquer, okay? Irenes is reconciliation with God and others through Jesus. That's what the peace means. Ephesians 2:14 says, "For he himself is our peace, who has made us both one and has broken down in his flesh the dividing wall of hostility." This marks Jesus as peace incarnate, uniting Jew and Gentile, sinner with God, male and female. You remember, I'm echoing what Paul is talking about. All right, it's the same thing. And he did all of this through the person of who he was, how he interacted with the world, how he taught us to interact with the world, and obviously through his cross. Rome's peace was called Pax Romana, okay, Roman peace, and it was a forced calm upon the citizens. It was enforced through brutal campaigns like the 6,000 crucifixions following Spartacus's rise up. If anybody didn't know, that's based on true stories and true events in history. That happened in 71 BC, and it was recorded by Appian that Rome lined the Appian Way with crosses, right? With all the way down through, and crucified 6,000 people. It was a way to silence rebels. Their peace, their Pax Romana, was peace through fear. It was fragile and it was oppressive. Jesus's peace is eternal, and it's won through sacrifice. And he offers shalom that restores and expands God's rule. And he secures this peace. In John 16:33, he says, "In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world." The Greek tribulation here means crushing affliction, but Christ's peace triumphs over that. And he sealed that when he rose and declared, "Peace be with you." It's the first words that he said when he rose from the grave was, "Peace be with you." He guards us with peace, as we see in Philippians 4:7, and promises this, "And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." This guard in the Greek evokes a military sentinel. So the peace is going to stand right by you like a bodyguard. You could use a bodyguard as an example, but really more like a guard to the king. Right, a military sentinel, right? Like his whole job and his whole everything about him is to protect that other person. Our peace is that protection for us. And he sends us with the peace. We see that in John 20:21. It says, "As the Father has sent me, so I am sending you." And the Greek "send" there is apostello, which is where we get apostle. Okay, it commissions us to carry the peace, like Roman heralds proclaiming victories. In Ephesus, believers spread the gospel amid Artemis worship and social divides. They claimed territory for Christ. And in 2025, with our world completely fractured and in chaos, because that's the opposite of peace, is chaos. And we're going to talk about that, the chaos that we see in this world today, and contrast it with the peace that we get through Christ. Jesus is our peace, and he equips us to advance with the evangelion, with evangelism, with the gospel of peace, to advance, to take it to the world, not just to hold it steady to ourselves. I'm going to use a couple of analogies today, but we, in our world and in our context, it becomes very easy for us to just close our borders and stay within, our little tight-knit group. And we're like, oh, nope, just within my family. Like, I'll pray before my meal, but maybe not out in public. I'm going to talk to my kids about Jesus, but I'm not going to talk about the people that I'm around every day at work for like 8 hours a day. I'm not going to invite them to church, or I'm not going to do this, because there's like a stigma attached to it, and we're afraid of what the repercussions are going to be from that. And the gospel of peace is what gives us that peace in the midst of that, in the midst of those conversations, to be able to carry it to the world. Ephesians 6:15 calls us to advance with the gospel of peace. Like, who's ever played the game of Risk, right? Like Risk players seizing continents, okay? But we're stumbling sometimes, and we allow chaos to hold ground that belongs to God's kingdom. That's what we do. And I'm not here to judge at all. I'm here to call us higher, okay? Because Jesus is our peace. He's our strength. And our families, our communities, and the world are crying out for this peace. And we've got it. And we're called to bring it to them, okay? So we're going to get honest in where we've been caught in turmoil instead of advancing. And then we're going to dive deeper into where we can actually carry this peace. Chaos is relentless in 2025, the opposite of peace. Scroll through social media, okay? It is a war zone, literally. People clashing over politics, ideologies, beliefs, turning neighbors into enemies and families into battlegrounds within your own family. And maybe you felt the pull. Maybe you've seen a post and it sparked you to anger, and you wanted to lash out against that, or drove you into debates with other people over, Republican versus Democrat, or, abortion versus pro-life, or, all of these different things. And what that happens when you dive into those debates is it steals your peace. Or it's even closer to you, and it's anxiety. Anxiety over finances, that it's gnawing at your rest in the middle of the night. Tension with a loved one, festering into silence between you two, because, man, that cuts the worst sometimes, is when you're just quiet. And that's it. I'm just not talking to you anymore. Fear about the future locking you in place. Maybe it's tension in a relationship, or depression slowly creeping into your mind. So Romans 8:6, and cuts right through this. It says, for to set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the spirit is life and peace. And peace. Chaos is sin's footprint. Okay, when we choose fear or division, or ourself over Christ, we lose peace within our lives. In Ephesus, believers faced pagan temples and Roman oppression. Today, we face cultural wars, social media storms, and personal battles within our life. Yes, our battlefield looks different than what it looked like to them, but it's a battlefield nonetheless. So I have a question for you today, okay? And I want you to really just think about it. So all those things that I talked about, and maybe there's more, I can't be exhaustive into every single way that chaos is sown into our lives. But where is chaos claiming territory in your life? Is your heart gripped by worry? Are your relationships fractured by conflict? Is your community divided by mistrust? Is your family broken because of beliefs and ideologies? Just think about it for a little bit. And when we don't move into those situations, those ones that I just named, and like I said, there's a bunch more, we're not advancing with the gospel. We're just holding it to ourselves. We're just holding it here. That gospel of peace, we're just holding it to ourselves, which I said is almost a natural instinct to just like circle the wagons around my family and keep my family safe, or circle the wagons around my church community, or circle the wagons around whatever else in our life, instead of going, you know what, I'm going to boldly step into this situation. I'm going to speak love and grace and peace and patience and understanding and wisdom into all of these things in my life. I'm not going to just hold it to myself. The feet fitted with the gospel of peace are designed for us to be able to take the enemy's ground that he's trying to take around us. We just stand and watch it happen in our communities, or watch it happen in our families, because sometimes we're too afraid to speak, or sometimes we're not too afraid to speak, but we're afraid to walk into those situations and have those hard conversations with people. And the feet fitted with gospel of peace are designed for us to take the good news. Isaiah 52:7 says, how beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him who brings good news, who publishes peace. How beautiful are the feet. Roman heralds were caligae to carry victory messages across empires back in the day, like the runners announcing Rome's triumph at Actium. And we're called to carry Jesus's victory into all those different situations in our life, but we're silent. We're afraid to speak of Christ at home or hesitant in our neighborhoods. And what happens when we do that is we let chaos dominate. So I talked about the game of Risk. I loved the game of Risk back in the day. Me and my brother Dalton, I know played it. I don't know if Clayton was old enough, but I know me and Dalton played it. I loved the game of Risk, and I still love the game of Risk. You want to know a way to not win the game of Risk? To get one singular country and stay in there the entire time.
Yeah.
Right? You will lose. You will lose every single time as all of the enemies outside around you just build up their forces until they're able to just roll over top of you. If you don't take territory, you will lose that game. 100%. You will lose. You have to constantly be trying to take territory and take strategic territory. And this is our call as well, to expand God's kingdom in that way, to take territory around us that the enemy wants to take, or that the enemy wants to keep a hold of, to keep people trapped, to keep families isolated, right? That is absolutely what he wants to do. And we're called to do this. John 20:21 says, as the Father has sent me, so I am sending you. We are like Risk players building strongholds, okay? And we got to go into the enemy territory and fight those battles, bring that peace with us, and take that territory for God's kingdom. When we just stand, what it does is it just surrenders the ground that the enemy is standing on and allows him to just build higher and higher and higher and higher around us. And we hold back. We don't want to step into those places because we don't want to have a tough talk with our kids, or we don't want to step up in our community. We end up staying quiet when we know somebody needs help because we wonder how that's going to look. The biggest way that you can see it is on Facebook or Instagram, Snapchat, X. My young kids that I miss one, right? Like one of the social medias that there's 1,000 of them out there now, right? Is we'll just stay silent when we see something. And we won't speak out against it because we don't want to be one of those crazy Jesus people that's constantly posting like, if you repost this, that Jesus loves you, I want to see how many people will do it. And I see those things come up and I'm like, man, come on. But maybe I should repost it. Maybe I shouldn't just let that person stand out there on their own in that territory that they're trying to take of social media. And we're going to talk a little bit about social media. So where do we take this piece, right? Where do we take it? And why does it matter? That's what we're going to get into. So we're going to start with your home, okay? This is your primary territory. Your family is a mission field. Whether it's kids navigating school pressures, a spouse wrestling with stress, or you're facing your parents getting up in years and they're aging. Kids in 2025 deal with intense chaos, identity struggles fueled by social media trends, and academic demands pushing 60% of teens to report stress-related anxiety in their lives. That's for the recent studies here in 2024, but that's the most recent one that I could find. And peer conflicts just amplify this online, bringing Christ's peace home through shared prayers, stories of God's faithfulness, or moments of grace can transform chaos into peace. And I don't know what it would have been like at home. Like if there was like, you had this like group of bullies and you had the one that like was leading the pack and there's like 3 other ones around him and they had something to say about what you were wearing or whatever. You only had to deal with them there. You didn't have to deal with them like online and at home where they got a bigger and bigger and bigger following, and your phone or tablet or PC or whatever the kids are using is just blowing up with people having horrendous things to say about one another. Kids are being attacked. And the reason is because families are God's covenant community. We see this in Deuteronomy chapter 6. This is where faith is nurtured for generations. You speaking peace and love and grace and God's love and Jesus' love into your kids can have an impact that far outlives you. So what we need to do is we need to have a home that is rooted in peace and have it become a fortress against the enemy, and then equip our kids to carry that peace out into the world. Like Timothy, whose faith was shaped by his mother and by his grandmother. As I was going through this story, I looked into Timothy and his grandmother, and I looked into the relationship Paul had with Timothy, and man, it was just so So beautiful. And I wonder, would that relationship Paul had with Timothy, would we even know Timothy's name and be talking about him 2,000 years later if his mother and grandmother hadn't spoken Jesus into his life and spoken faith and peace into his life? I don't think we would. I don't think that that's what would have happened at all. So you really don't understand what the outcome is going to be by speaking into your kids at home or by speaking into your spouse. Jesus' love and grace, building them up, not tearing them down like the rest of the world is trying to do. Building up your spouse is saying, listen, I know you're trying, you're doing your best, and we got this. God's got us. We're going to get through this together. We are a team. We're against the world together. Speaking like that instead of speaking like, how come you can't remember this? Or how come you can't help me with that? Or how come you do this? Or you got time with your friends? Or any of the other stuff that we end up tearing down our other half. The two shall become one. And when you tear down your spouse, you're tearing down yourself. That's what you're doing because the two are one. We need to build up ourselves and build up our spouses. Families are under attack. Divorce rates hover near 40% in the church. 40% in the church. And relational strain is basically just common knowledge. Right? Oh, every marriage goes through problems. Every marriage has difficulties. Everybody deals with this stuff. You know what? I rebuke that. I just do. I feel like if my family is built on the gospel of peace and the gospel of Jesus, and we love each other and treat each other as the way that Jesus wants us to be treated, which sure, stuff might come against us, but we don't have problems. We don't have trials. No, we got things that come against us and we defend against them. That's what we have. That's what we have when our marriage and our families are built that way. Your home is ground zero for God's kingdom. You can claim it by fostering this peace that reflects Christ's love. Your neighborhood is next, okay? The people next door, the families down the street, they are territory crying out for peace. Loneliness is an epidemic in this country. Over 30% of adults report chronic isolation in recent surveys. Neighbors may be battling loss, hopelessness, or disconnection, especially in a post-COVID world where community ties have been like totally weakened. We almost got inundated into just being alone, into being in our house, into not going out into the community, not going around people as much as before. You go past parks and schools and stuff, and you just don't see people together as much as what you used to 10 years ago, or 15 years ago, or 20 years ago. Community ties have weakened. Sharing Christ's peace through a kind gesture, a conversation about hope, or an invitation to ladies' event, men's event that we talked about, or just coming to church on Sunday morning, it can shift the atmosphere in your community. Why? Because we are called to be salt and light to our community. We are called to be a beacon of Christ's love and peace in the darkness. But what we end up doing is just coming back into our homes, around our communities, and putting a bushel, this big old house, over our light, and not speaking into our communities, not going for a walk in our neighborhoods and seeing who else is walking around and just striking up a conversation with them and inviting them to church, sharing the gospel, seeing if we can have an opportunity to be like, hey, do you know Jesus? We're afraid to do this. Like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be weird, right? I don't want to be weird. I want to be the weird one that just like starts talking about Jesus to people. It's the most important thing that you have, and you won't talk about it to people. We just won't. There's something, we have been conditioned by the enemy of like, now, you don't want to be that weird person to do that. You don't want to be that. Listen, I want to be that weird person. I want to be that weird person. It's been awesome starting a church. It's been amazing. And listen, you guys have the same opportunity that I'm just going to talk about. My wife can attest to this. Almost every single person asks, like, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm actually a pastor. And they're like, what? You're a pastor? You don't look like a pastor. No, I don't. I try not to. Right? I don't want to be a stuffy old white guy. That's not who I want to be. Right? I try not to look like that. I try to still be, hip and cool and stuff. And they're like, yeah, that's really cool. So where's your church? Right? Where's your church? I'm like, oh, actually, it's in my house. We planted a church. We're brand new, but man, it's awesome. We have just the most amazing people. They're strong. They're faithful. They're loving. Almost every single one of them is a servant. Almost everybody's involved. It's just this beautiful community that's been growing here. And they're like, well, where is it? You can have that same conversation. You don't have to say, I'm a pastor to get into that conversation. Like, you don't have to do that. You could just be like, when somebody asks what's going on in your, hey, who's had this? Somebody comes up and like, how's it going? What's going on? How you been? How's your life? Talk about it. Talk about it. Oh man, just, I've been coming to this church and we've been getting involved and my kids have been just coming home and talking about the word and all of this different stuff, and just breathe into that conversation and get them to just be like, well, where is it? What is it? You don't have to walk up to somebody and be like, do you know Jesus? Right? You don't have to do that. You can let it come out. You can let it come out in a natural way. You can let it just come out naturally, but you just got to engage with people and talk with people, go into those spaces. And we're going to talk about some of the other spaces, these territories that can be claimed, and not be afraid to say the name Jesus in those territories. Neighborhoods touched by the gospel become outposts of God's kingdom, pushing back chaos. In Ephesus, believers engaged their city, impacting even the economy. We see that in Acts 19, and it is so cool. I was reading it and going through it. Acts 19 just has this part where like the silversmiths of the city were coming and they were like, we got to stop these Jesus people. Like, we got to stop it. We're building, a lot of our income is based on these like idols that we're making to Artemis. Well, they're getting everybody converted to Jesus, and they don't want idols. They don't want it. I mean, it'd be fine if they wanted something made that looked like Jesus, but they don't want that. They don't want crosses. They don't want nothing. Like, they're just fine worshiping their Lord. And it is decimating our economy right now. Like, Jesus can impact our communities. Strong neighborhoods build resilient communities. Studies show connected communities reduce crime and improve mental health within the people within those communities. Your block is a battleground. Advance into it with peace. Next is your workplace. This is a critical territory. If you don't realize it, you spend the majority of your time doing two things: working and sleeping. Okay? That accounts for 16 hours, 2/3 if you work at just a normal 8-hour day. Some people work a lot longer than an 8-hour day, right? And then 8 hours of sleep. If you get 8 hours of sleep, if you don't have young kids. George is back there like, no, absolutely not. I do not get 8 hours of sleep. They're in my bed at 3 o'clock in the morning every other night. No, I got you. Seriously, though, you spend so much time at the workplace, okay? Whether it's an office, a classroom, a construction site, work is a pressure cooker. That's what it is. Deadlines to complete, competition between the other people there to move up on the workplace ladder, ethical dilemmas. Over 50% of workers report overwhelming stress in 2025 surveys, with burnout just rising. I got a couple of people that like work with family, so don't nod your head too much about like work being rough. Oh, never mind. Okay. Work's rough for him. Sorry, Alan.
It's okay.
Listen. Bringing Christ's peace into your workplace can look like integrity in a situation, can look like encouragement to someone when they just didn't quite meet the bar, right? A moment of grace. And these can transform your work environment. Okay, why? Colossians 3:23, if you never read it before, work is a calling to glorify God. That's what it is. It is a place where you can glorify God. It is a platform that you have been given to reflect Him. It's a place where people have no choice but to be around you. There's other people, right? The other workers, they have no choice but to be around you as you just reflect and be salt and light and just be Jesus. I'm not saying you got to go there and do anything that will get you in trouble, like, trying to force religion on people or anything like that. I understand there's rules and stuff and you're not supposed to be doing that. I'm saying just show up into your workplace community and be a light. And be a light in that place. Be different. Respond to situations differently. Respond with peace and patience and long suffering. It's hard to do sometimes, right? Because work just it comes against us. I'm telling you, it's a battlefield. Work is a battlefield. And you're already walking into it. You're already walking into this place because there's probably not that many people other than me that work in ministry, right? So my work doesn't feel like a battlefield on a day-to-day basis. Okay. But your work is a battlefield, and it is a place where you can take Christ's peace to. You can become a beacon. Your colleagues can see Christ's hope. It can shift your team dynamics. And if you don't believe that, you could talk to my wife, because she does that, and they've been doing that in their business, not being pushy or anything like that, but just being beacons and trying to just create an atmosphere of love and peace and compassion and grace. And I still got a job to do, so they still got to tell people when they do something wrong, right? But you can do that in love, and you can do that in grace, and it can be just an altering dynamic there that can change that place. Workplaces are where adults spend most of their waking hours, and impacting them can change lives. Impacting them there at the workplace, you don't know how what you're going to say is going to change how they respond when they get home. Right? Because how many times, I mean, we've seen it, right? Like dad gets home after a long day at work and he's tired and he doesn't want to deal with his kids. He's had a hard time. I'm not saying anything about abuse or anything like that. Like just doesn't want to interact. You know what? People just been at me all day. I just want to sit and watch the game. Well, what happens if all of a sudden, if your peace and grace, and your moment of encouragement towards that person changes their attitude when they come home and how they interact with their family? Something small. All of a sudden, it doesn't feel like the world came against him all day long. And now he has time or wants to interact with his family. You can imagine the ripple effect of sharing Jesus's peace with a coworker. It can ripple through their families. Your workplace is territory. Claim it. Schools are next. Schools are vital ground. And we got a couple of teachers in here, so y'all will agree with that, right? Especially for kids and teens. Classrooms and campuses are battlefields. Identity confusion, bullying, academic pressure, cultural influences like social media trends, TikTok trends, whatever. They create chaos. Over 20% of students report bullying, and mental health issues among teens have surged in the latest years. As parents, teachers, or volunteers in kids ministry, you can bring Christ's peace by mentoring, praying for them. If you have the opportunity, like I said, I understand we have some teachers. I don't know if you're allowed to share the gospel in school or not. I'm not sure, but you could still be salt and life, and you can still pray over your kids that you're interacting with, right? Like you can still do that. And all of us can do that same thing, okay? Because children are God's heritage. It says that in Psalm 127:3. Those exact words. Children are God's heritage. It's what they are, given to us, right? And we are called to shape that next generation. So you're like, all right, well, yeah, Pastor Dustin, but like, I'm not a teacher. We got some teachers in here. So, they obviously get to interact with kids on a daily basis and stuff, but I'm not a teacher. So how can I do that? Why are your kids, a lot of you got kids, are they in sports? Are you around other kids? Can you teach your children to be salt and light around those other kids? Can you volunteer at school in different community clubs and different stuff that they have? I'm not sure what they call it. Coaching the football team, or, just helping out or whatever, and just be a light in that space that is overcome with darkness sometimes. Peace-filled students can influence peers, like Daniel impacting Babylon's court. Schools are where values are formed, right? These kids, this is where values are formed. And if you just have the opportunity to be that beacon, to be that light, to be that peace in the midst of that situation, even just the way that you respond to your kids around other kids can be a beacon. Like, oh man, like, well, he just did that, and his dad didn't lose his mind over him. He was just like, no, it's all right, buddy. We can't do that. This is why. I'm not saying don't discipline your kids, but do it with love around other kids. Right? Do it with love in a way that they can look at it and be like, why is that family different? Why is their mom and dad a little bit different? Kids notice stuff. Kids really do. They see stuff. We want to be the opposite of a toxic influence to children. Right? And we want our families, our kids, and ourselves to be seen as the opposite of that. How about having the opportunity when you are at that football game or wrestling game or dance class or whatever to talk to some of the other parents? Invite them to church. Invite them to come out for a men's event. Hey, we're a bunch of guys getting together and doing stuff. or a ladies event, wildflowers, and some of those friends that you've made. Because I remember when my kids were younger, man, I made some friends at those football games, right? Because I'm loud, and so I was yelling. So everybody wanted to talk to me and be like, yeah, what that ref did, right? Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of just create this bond and this friendship because you're cheering for you're happy when their kids do good. They're happy when your kids do good. You're high-fiving on the sidelines, right? Use that opportunity and that rapport that you've built with that person to just be like, hey, you want to come out? You want to come out to this thing? You want to get together? You know, my small group's we just get together for wings. Like it's nothing, but you should come out. We can have the opportunity to plant seeds into families in these ways. Schools, and I should just say families and children, like they're mission fields. They really are. And we have to look for ways to be able to advance into them. Online spaces, these are totally unique territory for us, right? Like you read back through the Bible and you're not going to see nothing about TikTok. Promise. It's probably a better world because of that, just by itself, okay? But these platforms are chaotic. Division, misinformation, and hostility dominate. 70% of users report that they were exposed to toxic content like on a daily basis, right? And you don't have to look hard to find the bad content, right? Like at all. I'm laying down next to my wife and literally just hit the button for Facebook. Facebook opens and there's something on the newsfeed that I do not want to see. Right? And I've never looked at that stuff. I don't want to, but just throw it out there and just throw it out there and just throw it out there. But they are spaces that we can share Christ's peace through. A post about his faithfulness, a message to a struggling friend, a comment about holding on to hope. Why? Because we read in Acts 1:8 that the gospel will reach to the ends of the earth. We are now in an era where you can say something online about Jesus's love and somebody in China can read about it. All the way across the world, instantaneously. Like it is an opportunity for us to be able to step into that space. Every single week, I have people that comment on or like or watch just our sermons from Africa and India, like all over the place. I'm like, how do these people even find us? I have no idea. I have no idea how they do it. These digital realms, these single posts that can touch around the globe, they can allow us to shape culture online through our engagement with it. There are billions of people that are active on social media every single day. And yet, I talked about it earlier, we are afraid, hesitant, that's probably a better word, hesitant to share something that somebody posts about God's love. We are, right? Like we are. We're like, just scroll right past it. That's a missed opportunity to take some territory. You do not know who that's going to go to in your follower feed. That's going to be like, oh, Ashley did this. She shared this. Maybe I should take a look at it. I love Ashley. What does she have to say? Every single week, we post all kinds of stuff from the Way Church, and 1 or 2 people share it. It's fine. You don't have to. You're not called to. I don't want you to feel judged at all. I'm just like, why not? We just don't. Like we just don't do that. Digital spaces amplify voices. That's what happens. Digital spaces amplify voices because if I share it to my 400 followers and then he shares it to his 400 and then she shares it to her 400, each one of those 400, maybe 1 or 2 people share it off of that. It just amplifies the voice. And if that voice is salt and light, is a beacon to the world, that's territory that we can claim. We can amplify the message of Christ that way. Our online presence is territory that chaos is ruling in. We can claim it for Christ. The public sphere. City, local events, community gatherings. It's another battleground. Town halls, charity drives, coffee shop conversations. These are places that we can carry peace. In Ephesus, believers engaged public spaces. I said that they disrupted like the pagan trade, but I mean, Paul was right on the steps of the temple of Artemis preaching God's peace, right? Just standing out there preaching it to anybody that would hear it. Why? Because the gospel we read in Romans 12 has the ability to transform societies. shaping culture for God's glory. And public spaces are places where ideas are spread amongst other people. Your presence can shift those perspectives and shift what is talked about. Civic engagement builds trust as well. It's showing up with Christ's peace counters division within our culture. You can join in with an outreach group. I know we have a couple of them that we love as a church, like Side Street Mission, or stuff like the Salvation Army, or all this other stuff. Like, go into the culture and be that salt and light and that beacon. The public square can be territory. Next is churches. This is the last one I'm going to be with. Churches themselves are territory. The Way Church is territory. The Way Kids Ministry is a hub for equipping believers to spread peace. That's what we want to do. That's what we want to do here, right? Walk in the way together, teach the way, and share the way together. That other part. Engaging in small groups, serving in ministries, inviting other people to church, that strengthens the body. The church is Christ's bride, and we are called to shine his light. If you remember about the ones that didn't shine their light and the ones that did, like, we're called to do that. A vibrant church impacts community. Studies show active churches reduce local poverty and crime. Churches are anchors in a drifting world. That's what it is. They're anchors in a drifting world, anchoring you to God's truth, anchoring you to Christ's righteousness, anchoring you to Christ's peace. Your involvement in those things is territory, and you can build it up. So why does all this matter? Okay, I said where we can take it and why it matters. Okay, spreading peace is God's mission to reconcile creation. We read that in 2 Corinthians. It fulfills the Great Commission. Every territory claimed, every home school post, it expands God's kingdom, like Risk players, right? Building empires, but we're not building our own empire. We're building God's kingdom. We're building his empire. We're helping to take it out into the communities around us. It is urgent, right? Like neighbors' loneliness, coworkers' despair, children's confusion. Each one of those three things has suicide rates attached to it. Each one of them. Like, it's urgent. They need Christ's peace in their life now. In a world where anxiety affects 20% of adults and division fractures